Good afternoon, everybody. I'll ask the people on WebEx to ensure that you're muted. My name is Dr. Joseph LeBlanc. I'm the Associate Dean of Equity and Inclusion here at Nossum University. I'd like to welcome you to our recognition of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation and Orange Shirt Day. We are hoping that the students will continue to participate and stay with us in the rooms that are allocated, and as well as online. And welcome to our guests who are both on WebEx and on YouTube. Today is a really important day for those of us that are connected to community, and we want to honor our ancestors, family members, community members who participated in the residential school and day school systems. We think about them today and honor their experiences. Today's agenda includes speaking from a survivor who works very closely with the school, Elder Jean Nalgijic, as well as 4 learners that will share closer to the end. So we're here for an hour and a half, and would like to now turn it over to our Dean, President, and CEO, Dr. Sarita Verma, for some opening words.
Ani, bonjour, kwekwe, good morning, bienvenue. I hope you can hear me okay. Look at where I am. Here on the traditional lands of First Nation and Métis people in Temiskaming Shores, on Lake Temiskaming. Welcome, and to a very important, as Dr. LeBlanc said, day for Nossum University and what we are trying to continue to do, which is acknowledge where we are, the legacy of the tremendous history and the honor that we have of being part of that history that continues. The influence of Indigenous people and the problems that were inherited because of colonialism and historical exploitation are very serious ones that we must never forget. We don't forget them because we live with them. There are people who are amongst us who are survivors of residential schools. We have only recently, in the last less than a decade, received the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And at Nossum University, we are continuing to make progress towards addressing those recommendations, especially as they relate to health institutions, to health care, to education and training. And by the way, we care. We don't do a terrific job and we want to do better. So today, I hope that we have a chance to continue to learn and to reflect. Tomorrow is the day, but it shouldn't just be about tomorrow being the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Truth and reconciliation must be in our DNA. It must be part of what we do every day. You know, we don't just think about these things on the one day of the year. And that's the one thing I ask you to do is please continue to reflect, learn, listen, and work with our colleagues. I'm here in community because community is the lifeblood. It is the blood within our arteries and our veins. And being in community and meeting with people last month, I was able to go to Atikokan, Fort Francis, Kenora, Sioux Lookout, Dryden, and had a virtual meeting with Wawa, spent 3 days in Sault Ste. Marie, and now recently have been to Sturgeon Falls, North Bay, Timmins, Hearst, Kapuskasing, and today in Temiskaming Shores. We have a legacy of everywhere we go of residential schools, of ongoing health challenges, and the need for us to stand up and speak out and to continuously advocate for healthcare and for human rights for Indigenous people. Thank you so much for being here. My camera will be off, and depending upon connection may or may not be there, but I am there with you, strongly believing in what you're doing. And I want to thank Dr. LeBlanc and his entire organizing committee, the support from our IT group for actually leading this event this year. Every year it's fantastic. And every year I go away with a renewed sense of purpose that Nazem U is committed to addressing truth and reconciliation. Merci beaucoup, Miigwech, Chimiigwech, and thank you again for being here today. Please stay for the whole event, and tomorrow, please reflect on what you can do to make sure that we remember, always remember, never forget. Over to you, Dr. LeBlanc.
Jimmy Vetch, Dr. Verma, a big thank you for there's wise words and rooting us in our purpose here. You know, as a medical school, there are direct recommendations towards from the TRC towards us. Last year, we did a fulsome report back on that. We'll be turning that into a physical report, but the oral report is on our website. I want to draw your attention to a couple of things that we've done to support your learning journey. The library guide, again, is in place, and if you visit either library on the Thunder Bay or the Sudbury campus, there's a collection of resources available for you. So I encourage you to expand your understanding, to read something, listen to stories that you haven't heard before. Also at nosum.ca NDTR, you can find previous recordings. This is our 5th year. Each year has very powerful stories shared from different speakers. So today you'll hear from Jean Nalgijic and 4 learners, but in past years, those are all documented, as well as where you can donate to the Truth Award. So we started 5 years ago with the Truth Award fundraising. All of the donations that come in today, as well as through the sale of the shirts, go towards student bursary for Indigenous learners that are working to address the intergenerational impacts of residential schools. So I encourage you to go to nosum.ca/NDTR to both learn more, access additional resources, as well as consider a donation to the Truth Award, the student bursary. So I'm going to now play the recording. Earlier this month, I had the great honor of sitting with Elder Jean Nalgijic and recording his story. The space here is a day for truth. So please listen with an open heart and an open mind. And if there is, additional questions or other elements, Jean is very often involved with Nosum University. He's very actively involved in the Remote First Nations Residency Stream program, for example, which has additional cultural competence and components to it, as well as with AHEC, our Academic Indigenous Health Education Committee, which is a subcommittee of Senate. Jean sits with other elders and guides the school. We respect and honor their contributions in many ways. So I encourage you to follow up. The recording is about 45 minutes long. So please sit back and listen and learn. We appreciate it. So Jean is a member of Kiyashki Zagin Anishinaabe, Gull Bay First Nation. He is a parent, grandparent, and great-grandparent. He assisted with the development of cultural programming for children with various organizations for many years. He has been blessed to grow up traditionally and to have learned from his grandparents. He is from the Lake Nipigon peoples. Jean's grandfather is a direct descendant of one of the signatories of the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850. He has relations at Fort William First Nation, Rocky Bay First Nation, and Grand Portage. Jean has many historical connections with these communities. He's been a social worker for 30 years, as well as a former police officer. Let's listen to Jean's story.
Bonjour. Ani, Waiche, Miigwech. It's an honor and a pleasure to have this opportunity to be able to share my experience with the residential school and how that had affected my life, you know. So my name is Gene Nalgijik. I'm from Gull Bay First Nations on the west side of Lake Nivigan. And I am, a family siblings, 10 siblings, and my parents were married and separated, and I attended the Gull Bay Day School, have that experience. I think that's where it all began, this breaking down the family systems, I call it, my my parents separated, and my mom, a single mother of 10 children growing up, and my grandparents were getting old, and my grandfather as a trapper survived in a trap line, and my uncles were all fishermen and trappers. So what happened in that first phase of my life was we were, as a family unit, we were pretty stable. My grandparents were all hard workers. My uncles, and that kept us, as a family unit in the community. It never dawned on me I was living on a reservation until I got older. It was a community of Anishinaabe people, right? That's the way I grew up. And my parents were very traditional, and they were independent economically. And first thing I began to see was the market for fishing and trapping is depleted. So, and then when my parents broke up because of alcoholism in the community, it was starting to take effect. And the reason for that is because there was no economic viable things in the community anymore. So first thing that happened was, in my experiences, the welfare system came in, and then the way the welfare programs were structured was that the mother cannot get welfare support if the man is living in the house, and the man in the house had no job, no economic job, to support the family. So my dad moved away, worked somewhere else, and his alcoholism progressed. My mom had to stay home, look after 10 kids. And to me, that's the beginning of her family breakdown. And there were not only me and my family, but there was other families in that community started sending their kids off to school. Maybe they'll eat, better 3 times a day type of thing. That's what my mother told me when I was shipped out. Maybe you'll eat better. She didn't know, what happened, what's going to happen. She didn't know that there's no consultation, nobody came down and sat down with us. This is what it's going to happen, or this is what we're going to do. They just shipped us out on a bus, and away we went. it was a good ride until the time you arrive at the school, you know. So that's you're shift out and you don't know if you're coming back or how long you're gonna be away. Nobody told you that. My mom, didn't have the resources to come and visit me every week, you know. Transportation was, you know, hardly any transportation back then. It was a semi-isolated community, you know. So you probably would have to hitchhike out because you had no financial help or support or, 'cause my dad was away somewhere else working, you know. And because they separated, so my uncles had to support us for a while and then until I moved away. And what happened, that's what it was like. Life on the res was good up to that point. My granny was still alive. You were learning the skills, about the bush life, and you're starting to, go out in the land with your uncles and my grandfather teaches all the things how to survive, how to maintain a good life. But after that, when I was taken away to a residential school, arriving at the school, first thing they did to you was, stick us all downstairs in the basement of that school. I went to St. Joseph's boarding school just down the street from here on Archer Street. And I was gonna visit that as soon as this residential school thing started happening. I was gonna go in there and visit that school. They tore it down before that happened. I guess they must have knew that the settlement was gonna go in our favor, eh? So they tore the building down and destroyed all the buildings near it. And then it's just in our minds how we picture what was in that building. Eh? So that was one of the things I wanted to do. So being in there, I was 9 years old, and first thing is they cut off my hair. The story of getting and wasn't even a style. It just got a electric hair cutter that just go straight down the middle, scalp you right there, and put some kind of chemical in your head there, make sure you have no bugs or something. I don't know. That's like kill all the life in my head. And so that's traumatic, somebody cutting your hair, and my mom managed to purchase some new clothing for me. Eh? She packed everything nice clothes, and and when I arrived at the school, they took all that away, gave me a regular patchy old clothes, so I wore there whole year like that. They took everything, stripped me down. They didn't want to have that. I don't know. They took my clothes and give them to the city kids. I don't know what they did with my clothes, but I never saw them again. And then my uncles would come and they would give me money for me, to go to a store, corner store, or whatever I need. They put money, they took all that away, I didn't see a penny every time that my uncle gave me money. I didn't see it. There was two other brothers, one younger than I was, And I think the youngest one suffered the most, and he died on the street from alcoholism. Couldn't digest, survive through this whole process of, you know, revisiting that whole area. And I think that he couldn't cope with it. Me, I managed to survive because, you know, in a family unit that size, I was the caretaker of all my siblings. That's the role I played after my dad left. So I had to fill in that shoe as a caretaker of that family. My mom, or my mom anyway. You know, I was 10 years old, I was a super responsible person. You know, doing the wood and all that. But when they pulled me away, and that stick me into this school and this property, couldn't leave, you know, it's fenced in, you know, you're isolated along with, you know, 60, 70 other kids, you know, in that environment. And there you experience a lot of abuse, a lot of kids fighting, you know, every day you're defending yourself, defending your siblings, you know, and you if you look at the communities today, you know, these people that went to residential school, you still have those rivalries between First Nations, you know, and it comes up in the sports thing, like hockey or something, there's rivalries going on. That, you know, never used to be like that a long time ago. You know, you look at the history of Gull Bay and Lake Nipigon, all around the lake, there's communities all around the lake. And people used to visit each other, you know, move around the lake. And you never hear any, you know, any fighting going on. Today, young people today killing each other downtown, you know, from crashing from different First Nations. And we were wondering what happened, what's going on. You know, that's what's going on. The whole person was, like myself, was had to find a way of life to survive. You know, when you hear about survivors, and you know, not only sexual abuse or physical abuse, but you have to survive mentally, emotionally, you know, to be able to come out on top of that after the school. And so my day-to-day experience at the school, you know, they put me in the dorm. I think it was 3 or 4 floors, and the boys were in the top floor of that school, and you could see that, you know, you look out, you know, like this is the 6th floor, and you see around the lake, and goes like that. At night, and I used to sit, you know, look out the window and trying to figure out which way is home, is it that way or this way, you know, because there were kids that were trying to escape, they were running away, and they were caught before they hit outside the cities. And I was so scared to do that because I didn't know which way to go to get back home. And I remember one of my friends from my res, he ran away one day, and he was out for about 10 hours and he come back, you know, rather than trying to find out why he was trying to run away. punish them, they strap them, and they isolate them for a couple of weeks, and punishments like that, or mental abuse. And so in this dormitory, there's little beds, rows of little beds. You see pictures of them. Some others do. And then I was, in a dormitory like that, for a while. I don't know how long, but I was there for long enough to experience what other kids were doing. A routine. You go there, after supper, you go and go to your bed, and then you watch TV for maybe half an hour, and they send you lights out at 8 o'clock, and then during the night, you begin to hear kids, younger kids start crying. I want to go home, mommy, miss mommy. I want to go every night like that. You have to find a way to shut that out of your head, and I don't know where my siblings were. There's 2 of them in that area. They were, not close to me. They were in there somewhere. I don't know, probably crying every night also. But I think you just learn how to shut everything off mentally. And then there was one kid next to me. Wet his bed every night. Every night he gets strapped for wetting his bed. They even wash his blankets. Shame with other kids. I'm so afraid to wet my bed. One time I wet my bed, and what I'm gonna do with a big yellow spot on my sheets. Holy son, how am I gonna get out of this? So I see one kid over there wetting his bed all the time. I went and switch blankets with him so I could save myself and then him getting hit, like that. That's a survival skills that you have to develop. The poor guy, he got the punishment. I got away with it. Those kinds of mental abuse, really, keep thinking back now. That's awful for a 10-year-old to be able to survive that way, and the learning how to block all that experience. These issues didn't come up till when we start talking about settlement issues, and then when you start filling out these forms and the questionnaires, this is where this thing began to open up in your head. And I'm still dealing with some of the stuff, which I'm going to share here a little bit, not too much, because I don't think I'm done yet with the school residential issue. I think they're, I don't know if it's still open to complain, as you begin to heal. I don't know if you could go back and revisit those claims, That's what they tell you when you sign off. This is it, you can't go back. That's what they told me, and so I think that's wrong. I think I try to revisit that whole thing because new things pop up in my head that I want to deal with, So what happened is after in the big dorm where I stayed, they moved me to another dorm. It's I turned 10 years old, 11. So they put me in another dorm where smaller, bigger kids, my age and maybe 12, 13-year-old kids were staying. So that he stick me in there. And, away from the bigger dorm. So I was in there and then for a while, and then they moved me into this rooms, there's separate rooms, you know, maybe not as a hallway, there's separate rooms, they stick me in a separate room, isolating me more, you know, from the main group. And what was happening there is, you know, the nuns would come in and check up on you, tuck you in bed, and then that's where the abuses start happening. So I'm not able to deal with that, you know, because I'm just trying to formulate some of the stuff that was building up to that relationship, and getting next thing I know, I was taking a bath in sister's room. In her bathtub, I was taking a bath in there, and I can't really, you know, for my mental block, I can't yet unlock those mental blocks in my head. But I know, you know, the relationship I had with the nun, you know, kept me, and I was treated special kid, you know, because I'm getting, you know, these things separated from the other groups. And what happened, I think, is kids began to know that this was happening to me, and they started calling me sister's pet, you know, because I get the goodies and I get, you know, the whole things that happen when the perpetrator works on his client's child abuse. They give them candies and privileges, you know. That's as far as I went in that area, in that apartment, you know, my stay there. But the other thing from the spiritual side of it is that I went to church every day. You know, you go to church every day, do your penance, and memorize this Latin prayer. I don't even know what it meant, you know, every day, and have to go to confession. What a 10-year-old what kind of sin can you commit at 10 years old? Sorry, God, I spoke my language today. You know, every day you gotta come up with some kind of sin, you know. It's really, I don't know, and people that were trying to change your Mishnah saying and change your thinking and destroy your makeup as a Mishnah. And the reason why I say that is after I left residential school, I didn't learn nothing, because there's too much for my brain to digest and function. All I started thinking about is how I'm gonna get out of here and get home, you know? And I guess my anger, internalized anger went inward. Instead of a lot of kids, their anger is exposed and they got punished more. So me, I just buried everything. And after I started to walk a good life, you know, when I left school, residential school and then went into, try to go into high school. And I couldn't function very well because you're behind in grades and all the other kids. It was too hard to catch up, more or less, say. And then so the best thing for me to do was go went to work. So then 16, 17, I went to work and worked ever since. So, but after the residential school and the effects that the brainwashing that went on in there, I didn't realize this is what they were doing. And then when I started to hear about residential school settlements and some of the stories people shared, and some of the government's admitting, what hurt me the most was that this was planned, This was not because my family was dysfunctional and moved these kids to a better school, maybe a better chance of life. No, it was to destroy me. They did, And they from a social work point of view, when you separated a little baby, born baby or 3-4-year-old baby, put them in a foster care system, child welfare system. You pull that child away from the mother. You broke the law there, the bonding. You can never repair that once that's broken. So my relationship with my mother was never like this, because I didn't trust her, because it should be off again, So, and that bonding never really happened till much later, until I fully understand what was the intent. The intent was to destroy me, and that really hard to take, the government and the church, their plan of the destroy missionary, the child, kill their child within. And that's an awful word to hear when you went through that life, and to recover from that, to at least start your healing process with that. It takes, I spent 10 years in alcoholism, I ended up in Skid Row, 20 years old, I was in Skid Row, walking the streets in Winnipeg and Thunder Bay, and I understand those guys downtown, what they must be going through, and nobody understands them. Why you have tents down there, They probably have a rougher life than I did, And the reason why my life was a little bit easier there, because I had relatives are already in that system, so they kind of guide me a little bit, some of the trauma that cautioned me not to do this, not to do that, So I think that's the whole effect after you left still carries me today, because I have a hard time bonding with my kids, you destroy relationships. You find a nice person, a partner, that you want to spend time with. You sabotage it subconsciously. You find a way to destroy it, because that's not for me, that's for somebody else. Yeah, I don't deserve this, you know. So I was always afraid to commit, and even today, you know, even today I can't because the church ruined my life, and I cannot accept that system, you know, that marriage institution. It's not for me, you know. So I'm 100% Anishinaabe, you know. I choose that to do that. My life has changed quite a bit from healing, you know. So I had to mentally, I had to deal with all my mental health issues, you know, and my rage, my anger, you know, and then my emotion, my feelings. I didn't cry till I was 40 years old. I didn't know how to cry because I saw it as a rock, you know. You could beat the crap out of me, you know, you only see a tear in my eye. That's how screwed up I was, messed up, you know. And how do you fix that? There's no counseling or social worker could fix that. It has to come from here. And how do you do that? You know, you have to, you know, develop some knowledge in how to release some of that, the mental illness in your head, you know, rage, anger, resentment, hate, you know, because you carry, you say you don't, but it's there, you know. Maybe you don't condone it, you're carrying it, but somewhere along the line, it's got to release. So maybe after 5,000 sweats, maybe I'll soften up a little bit. And I know that's the only way I was able to release, you know, that's trapped in my head, you know, had to rewire my head. You know, in addictions, they tell you have to rewire your head if you want to get well, you know. So that's what has to happen in this life, but it doesn't fix the fact that you lost 30 years of your culture. Then what has to happen is you have to go back this way and kind of join them back and then move on that way to traditional life. Otherwise, you can't just start off, you know, your life ended here and start when you're 30, 40 years old and continue, you know. Otherwise, you'll always have this garbage in between that you got to deal with, you know. That's the hardest thing to do. You need a lot of good people, good friends to help you do that and achieve that. You know, I like the idea of Northland School dealing with cultural into that programming, but knowing how long it took me to recover from that hopeless state of mind and body took me a long time. I did a lot of daily reprieves, how I learn to walk with my shoulders, you know, and the saddest part is your connection with your relatives. They're off. Their healing has to start also. So you find yourself isolated again on your own, trying to have a good life, and they tell you have to abandon your family. You can't do that. That's not who we are. So you have to continue to stay in the family sickness, alcoholism, drug addiction, You know, you have to be part of that. You have to be strong enough so that you help these guys one at a time so they don't fall in.
If you wanted to leave the, new doctors and faculty with any one message, what is it that you think doctors and future doctors and healthcare providers should understand?
I think I've been focusing and thinking about quite a bit of that Anishinaabe way. Anishinaabe way is the way of the heart, right? The good heart. Minomads are the good life. And the philosophy of the Anishinaabe is based on the Anishinaabe languages. The language is your philosophy of life. And if people understood the language, they would understand the Anishinaabe way of life, and then you look at the medicine wheel, the seven grandfather teachings and all this fancy systems, the clan system and the main part is to focus on language and the medicines. I was reading the main things the doctors would meet on, at Northern Stream and how, those rules that you put down there, what expectations to the residents to know about the community. And I think when you look at a First Nations community, there's a lot of Christianity you have to deal with. So how do you, and what's happening is the language, the Anishinaabe language was translated into Catholicism. So a lot of the old words were you could hear the Christian, the Christian, what would you call it? If you're English speaking, and sometimes you hear the French, version of things, like that. And you don't get the true concept of the Anishinaabe philosophy, Some teacher once said that Anishinaabe people won't have a philosophy. Well, if you know the language, then you would understand their philosophy, what that means, a holistic approach, So, and when you look at the systems, the overlapping services, that's like a big no-no in the corporate world. Everything's in boxes. Your job roles are separated. So if medicine could override, there's doctors, and there's nurses, and there's, you ask a nurse to do some doctoring work in the community, I can't do that, I'm not a doctor. When you're a person, you could help this person, So I think that what needs to happen is we need to understand the how to bring down the defense mechanism on each community. And the way to do that is develop a strategy of community members working with the doctors. Like I've been involved with the northern residents, last couple of years. And what I'm seeing is that, the expectation, there's elders in there in the community. There is none, So you have to be mindful. You have to know if there's no traditional elders in that community learn medicine, then you have to find a way to help get them set up. Because the elders I talk about in this area, you know, they don't want to work with medical profession, you know, and they want to do their own isolated their healing ways. Like I carry medicines. I got my bundle. I learned all the levels where I should be at in terms of my recovery. I got a drum, I got a pipe, I sweat, I dance, I do sun dance, I do sweat lodges, I do healing ceremonies, I do naming ceremonies, you know. Those things are as important as learning how metformin works. you know what I mean? You know, I'm a diabetic, and if I live my entire life in a healthy Mishnah way, I don't think I'd have diabetes today. Because I'd be living off the land and eating properly, you know, proper foods in my environment. You know, most of the things I eat today, you know, are not indigenous to my area. So those kinds of things that I think you're not going to take overnight, and if you what's really affects community doctoring is that when you bring a well-known doctor from another, let's say, they used to bring in Good Striker. You know, if you hear that name, he used to come this area. He came from Alberta, but people didn't know him. You know, so everybody gravitated to that person and you want them in their ceremony, eh? And if you could have doctors work with people like that, you know, you probably know some already that are almost like charismatic when they move into a community. Everybody wants to see them, right? And then I think we have to preserve those people and bring them together once in a while.
So I want to send love and great gratitude to Gene for sharing his story. We, like I said, you'll see Gene in the school or in other places, and so please, you know, follow up. The Indigenous Affairs Unit as well is available to continue the conversation. I really appreciate the attention to the story, and today's a day for truth. And it's important to sit with and understand, you know, all of what you've heard. This will also be on YouTube again, as well as the other ones, so it's opportunity to learn some more. Our next presenters are here with us in Sudbury. I want to welcome these four incredible learners who are here to share their journeys with us. Together, they are working on a mentorship program that they will share in more detail. All four are connected to the James Bay region, and I want to welcome Justice Seidel, Ashley Gillies, Emma Etherington, and Tara Hutchinson to join me here.
Miigwech Joseph. So my name is Tara Hutchison. I'm in my third year here at NAWSM. Beside me is Justice. She's in her first year. Emma behind me to my right, and then Ashley to my left. So as Joseph said, we are all connected through being from the James Bay region. We're all from the Cree communities on the western side. So if you don't know where it is, it's southern point of Hudson Bay. So starting with Moose Factory, Moosonee, and then as you move north, you get to Fort Albany, Sheshwan, Adwapscat, and then it's not marked, but way at the top is also Pewanik. So my story, as I said, I'm Tara. I'm a member of Moose Cree First Nation. I was born in Moose Factory. I spent my early childhood in Moose Factory, but then I moved to Sudbury when I was 8 years old with my parents, Victoria and Jeff Hutchison, and my big brother, Liam. But Moose Factory is always home. I'm very fortunate to have a very large family. As you can see from the group photo, they're actually not even all in there. So we have quite a large family. But I'm mixed descent, so the Cree heritage is from my mom's side. Many of my family members did attend residential school. My grandfather, Leighton Monroe Linklater, went to Pelican Residential School in Sioux Lookout. And my grandmother, Laura, went to Bishop Horton in Moose Factory, as well as a bunch of my uncles and aunties also went to Horton Hall. They also went to the residential day schools, including my mother. And the bottom picture in the middle is actually my mom. So she was able to visit Pelican this week while she was traveling to Fort Frances for work. So she was able to visit where my grandfather went to school. My grandfather Monroe was a huge advocate for education. He was a chief of Moose Cree in the early 90s. And in an interview with him 4 years before he passed in 1995, he stressed the importance of knowing the past for ensuring successful survival in the future, and that we need to know who we are, where we come from, so we can have a strong sense of self. I think he'd be very proud today to see the healing that our parents have done to raise the younger generations, and I knew this was going to happen. But anyways, so this accomplishments that my family has been able to manage is quite remarkable. My mom just graduated from her MBA at the University of Fredericton last month. I have a bunch of other aunts and uncles who have completed master's degrees. One of my uncles and cousins, so their father and daughter, are both completing their PhDs in education. And that same uncle is also the vice principal of the school that my grandfather helped bring to Moose Factory. So it's quite special. And his daughter, Candace, is my cousin, Candace Linklater, and that's her logo for her brand, Relentless Indigenous Woman. And she has an amazing platform. She's been doing a lot of discussion lately on truth and reconciliation, so I'd recommend taking a look at her resources as well. But many of my cousins are also involved in education, healthcare, and are helping our community. I'm really proud of them, and that's mostly what I wanted to focus on today was the incredible healing that our communities had to do. But mostly I just wanted to say that I think our community has a very bright future. And when I look around at the lady sitting behind me, I think that's really true. While our past is difficult, I'm very inspired by our current generations and our future generations. And I just wanted to say a quote that I really like to wrap up my family story. We are their wildest dreams, sprouting and coming to life. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. So sorry for making you guys cry. I'm gonna pass it to Emma.
So my name is Emma. I'm a proud Albany First Nation band member. I have strong family ties to the communities of Fort Albany and Kasatchewan First Nation. My journey to NOSM has been influenced by my own experiences, but also those who come before me. My grandpa grew up in Fort Albany, where he attended St. Anne's Residential School. He never really spoke about it. And then after we died, we started to learn a lot about the horrible things that happened at that so-called school. My granny, on the other hand, she's from Cache, Kasatchewan, and her story is different from my grandpa's. During the residential school era, she ran away with her family to live in the bush off the land. Together, they raised 11 children, including my father, who is the youngest. My father showed me the way through his hard work, his struggle, his service to his communities, and his love for his family. He was the first generation in my family to attend post-secondary school. This was a path that required him to live away from his family and alone a lot of the time. My personal journey had me moving from my home community of Moosonee at the age of 14 to attend high school in Timmins. I was very fortunate that my family was able to make a huge sacrifice, really, and move with me. But my family's story is not unique. This is the reality for many First Nations people in Northern Ontario and in the country. I chose to become a nurse and work back home in Moose Factory at the hospital. And this is the hospital where I had relatives take their first and their last breaths. And it became very clear to me how important it is for our people to take care of our people. These are some of the reasons why truth and reconciliation is so important to me.
Hi, everyone. I'm gonna put this closer. My name is Justice, and I'm from Moose Factory and from the Moose Cree First Nation. And I'm also a first-year student on the East Campus. And when I reflect on my journey to medical school, I can't really do so without acknowledging the lives of my parents and my grandparents. So in the picture, you'll see my mom and her 13 siblings, and they all attended Indian day school in Moose Factory for parts of their childhood. My granny Beulah was a residential school survivor, and she attended residential school for the entirety of her childhood. So she entered when she was 6 years old and left when she was able to leave when she was 16. But during that time, her parents had passed away and all of her older siblings had moved away. So she really had no one to go to. So she ended up staying in the residential school until she was 18. And my granny didn't share much about her experience at residential school. We would hear a few things here and there growing up, but it wasn't until in her later years when she was living with dementia that she unfortunately went back to that place and had to relive those experiences. So you can imagine it's hard enough to go to residential school once, but having to see someone go through that twice is really heartbreaking. And then my grandpa, Abel, he did not have to go to residential school, but he still lived a really hard life as well. His parents took refuge in the bush along the James Bay during the ages that my grandpa would have been forced into residential school. And my grandpa grew up on the land. So my gukum, his mom, was a medicine woman, and she birthed a lot of children and helped families that lived in the bush at that time. And so he really grew up learning traditional Cree ways of hunting and gathering and about traditional medicines. But my grandpa was also very open about the racism that he faced because he wasn't educated in a Western education system. And so he only really knew how to write his name and his signature in English, and otherwise never needed to learn how to write. And so growing up, he would always encourage his grandchildren to go to school and to get an education. And I'll never forget this memory. I was in the 8th grade and I asked my grandpa why he always encouraged us to go to school when he never went to school himself. And I'll never forget his response. He told me to keep going to school so they can never call you stupid like me. And that was a really big driving factor into why I pursued the educational journey that I did, and I'm keeping on with that educational journey, although I don't know he thought it would be this long. But I share with you today a piece of my family and my family's history, and to say that without their resilience and their survival, I literally would not be here today along with the ladies behind me. And not only did they survive, but they also did a lot of work to break different harmful cycles in order for me to live a good life, in order for me to exceed and for me to achieve great things. And so I share with you that I choose to honor my family and all that I do, and just want to say miigwech for listening.
Wache. My name is Ashley Gillies, daughter to Judy and Len Gillies. I am a second-year NOSM student and a Fort Albany First Nation band member. I grew up and attended school in Timmins. However, my family and I maintain strong links to our community of Fort Albany by returning multiple times yearly for traditional harvests and family activities. My father and his twin brother were born at Moose Factory Hospital to Bessie and George Gillies. Their permanent residence was Fort Albany, where 7 of their 13 children still reside today. This means I have a lot of cousins. I actually just found out I'm cousins with Emma, and last night I found out I'm cousins with Justice. Both my Mushum and Cookham had Caucasian fathers, Hudson Bay employees. Therefore, status was obtained, or regained, rather, when Bill C-31 was enacted. My father, all his siblings, many of my cousins, and my older sister all attended St. Anne's Residential and Day School. This is why truth and reconciliation is important to me, but more importantly, my community. After high school in Timmins, I pursued a career in nursing and now medicine because I've witnessed firsthand the profound and lasting impacts of both direct and intergenerational trauma on the health and well-being of our Indigenous communities. Amidst the challenges and struggles, I've also been fortunate to experience the beauty that comes with being Indigenous. I have seen laughter act as a powerful form of medicine. Traditional harvesting and practices passed down from generations to generations. The transformative power of Indigenous-led sports, the importance of community, family, and elders. I feel that embracing and celebrating these aspects are all also part of truth and reconciliation. We stand before you 4 Indigenous students from our region who have been blessed with the opportunity to pursue academic education. We collectively acknowledge how privileged we are. Our parents, grandparents, and the generations before them, through their sacrifices, and despite many injustices and inequities, have enabled us to have this opportunity that not all Indigenous youth can readily access. This privilege is not taken for granted. We carry gratitude towards our parents and ancestors who have guided us on this journey. It is our belief that every Indigenous student deserves the very best education, whether this be grade school, high school, post-secondary education. Academic education in the colonized world we live in today has the power to pave the way for self-determination and sovereignty within our Indigenous communities. In our journey, specifically within the field of medicine, we will acquire the knowledge and skills to improve the health and well-being of our fellow community members. Education becomes a means to break down barriers, challenge systemic racism, and address the unique healthcare challenges that exist for Indigenous people. Our commitment to this principle is what drives us. And to elaborate further on the importance of this and how we have been collaborating to make this a reality, I now pass it along to Justice.
So we also wanted to share a little bit about a project we've been working on for like a year and a half, maybe. And it's called the Kiskino-Tahiwak Partnership. And that name was given to us by Moose Cree elders, and it translates to they who show the way. And essentially, the Kiskino-Tahiwak Partnership is a community-based health professionals mentorship program. And it's a collaboration of community members, current healthcare students, post-secondary institutions, including the Winnebago Area Health Authority. And so it's comprised of the leadership circle, which the 4 of us are involved with. But I just want to give you an overview of some of our other leadership circle members. So there's Max. So he is a settler family physician who has ties to the region. And he worked primarily in tuberculosis care. But right now he's currently completing his residency in public health at Harvard. And he is responsible for the advancement portfolio. So he is responsible for creating partnerships, building and expanding the program, gaining exposure. And this is really important, but advocating for updated Indigenous admissions. We also have Tanis, who's a member of the Moose Cree First Nation, and she really helps us with all things administrative and keeps us all together. And since we've taken this photo, we've added 2 more people to our leadership circle. So Caden is also a Moose Cree First Nation member, and he's responsible for outlining pathways for various health professions. So we're able to adequately mentor and give options to students who are involved. And he's also starting academic support for students while they have to leave the community and pursue higher education. And then we just joined our first undergrad member. Her name's Kaylee, and she's a Matagami First Nation band member with ties to Moose Factory. And she's in her 2nd year of the Q Arms program at Queen's, and she is going to be overseeing high school mentorship, which is really exciting. And then we also have our advisory circle, and they are a group of elders and respected community members in the region, and they really are there to provide guidance and insights to community needs. They are a good group of people, but it's also a group that we remain accountable to. So they hold us to a standard and we fulfill that to the best we can. But they have been really supportive along this journey. And what we heard from them is that we need to grow our own, that culturally safe and representative care saves and prolongs lives. The best quality care can only come from the community, and sustainable solutions are built from the grassroots up. So now we'll share a little bit about each of the portfolios that we manage. And so mine happens to be sponsorship, which basically is identifying opportunities for students in the region to strengthen their CV within their community. So taking away from having to leave the community to get different opportunities. And this includes research, volunteering, and funding. And a real big part of my portfolio is where opportunities don't exist, we create them for students.
Okay, so I manage outreach. So the goal of outreach is to provide community-based events that offer an introduction to different healthcare career possibilities. So we partner with local healthcare professionals to help facilitate these sessions. And we've also invited other academic institutions like Laurentian, Northern College, NOSM joined us, and the faculty's medicine at U of T and Queen's. And they came to speak about their respective healthcare programs, but our most recent work was at the end of January of this year. We went to Moosonee and Fort Albany. We had plans to go to Moose Factory, Adwapscat, and Cache, but weather and COVID had other plans for us. But from those 2 schools that we did reach, we had a number of students express interest in medicine, nursing, paramedicine, and have now signed up for mentorship. And that was only with our 2 visits so far. The driving force behind that is accessibility to similar programs from other institutions is a challenge for remote communities. When I was in high school, I came to NOSM's Camp Med, and it's actually a huge reason why I became interested in medicine and where I am today, and I likely wouldn't be here today had I not gone. So that's why it's important for us to keep this initiative based in community to help remove those barriers and go to those students directly.
I manage the recruitment portfolio. So what I do is I help identify and reach out to students for mentorship. So nursing, health professions, or pre-medical, high school and university. We're hoping to eventually expand into more specific programs like nurse practitioner, midwife, paramedicine, etc. Currently, we are focusing on Indigenous students from the Waha region or the James Bay region. But once we are more established, we're hoping to share this model with different regions. I'm also in charge of the intake process, so I just get an idea of each student, where are they from, their goals, where they want to go in their journeys, and where they currently are in their journey. So are they working? Are they in their undergrad? Are they high school students? And then based off that, I pass them along to the team for mentorship, sponsorship, and education advising. I also help identify mentors in various health professions and backgrounds for our students. And I also do social media and social conveners. So I try to engage our mentors and mentees to establish a community. So I do activities. Yeah.
So I oversee the mentorship activities. I've created the outlines and the guides for all participants to use, and they're available through Cooper, which is the mentorship platform we are using. A lot of the work has been adapting Cooper to fit the needs of a community organization rather than like the business world. We've also put in work to customize Cooper through use of Indigenous artwork. So Holly Pichette is the artist who made our logo and who made that backdrop that we use on the platform. We're also hoping to create our own resources to upload to Cooper. So things like Cree language resources. All four of us are currently mentoring students who are interested in pursuing careers in medicine. Through our health professions mentorship program, we are acting upon the inequities that exist in our region, particularly in education and health. What is important to us is that we have sovereignty over this program and that our program is for our people and by our people. We are confident that our program will help break down barriers that exist to education, but we recognize larger issues remain, such as the underfunding of schools and First Nations communities. Still, we know that there will be people who come after us and study in medicine or other programs. That being said, schools and institutions in this country need to be prepared to provide culturally safe environments, and there is still a lot of work to be done in this area of reconciliation. And that is all we have to share with you today. Miigwech, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing and for bringing your truth to this space. We really, really appreciate you, and we really value your participation here, and thank you so, so much. So in closing, I want to share, and again, remind people that there's more to learn. Please, check out the library guides, check out previous presentations. Tomorrow is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. On this site as well are links to local events. So if you're in Thunder Bay, you're in Sudbury, there are the local events listed there. So please take the time to go be with community, connect, and learn with humility. As well, there are supports available if you want to, continue the conversation, need help processing what you've heard. We encourage you to reach out for support and to do that, again, on your own time. Here are some links to that. And to wrap up, Jean requested that we share a song. So we'll do that now at the end, and wish you all a good day. And again, great gratitude and love for your participation and taking the time to come and listen to this very important conversation.
Bonjour, miigwech, shomas, nagdo min, nagdo mudo, mechtabe mani, shomas, miigwech. Migać. To mission where we gonna collect more like migać. Okay, guys, thank you.
So again, thank you very much for attending. You know, take these words and integrate them into your conception of Canada and what we experience as far as seeing patients and community members. You know, to build off of what was said, right? As Jean said, and as you know, was very clear. You know, they attempted to kill that inside of us, and you can't. So ultimately, you know, really proud to stand here today and share, and really, really grateful for your sharing today. So, miigwech.